critical. Sensational, crucial. Digital, dynamic.
Sun. Where is the sun?
Who wants some?